everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this right here, all around you, everything you see is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after the first Winnipeg Jets victory of the 2025-2026 season. I'm going to begin this show. Well, we're going to begin it with the Jim Pattison Toyota on Region opening drive, where Renny just gets the floor all to himself. We get Ken out of the way, nothing to detract from the brilliant analysis that so often comes on this show. And we're going to start this show doing what just obviously comes natural in this situation. That's talking about the Calgary Flames. Okay, now just hold on. I'm going somewhere with this. Okay, I'm going back to a lesson, Renny. I'm going to bring it around. Believe me, it's going to be worth your time. I can see. Don't you sit back down. I know what you're thinking. I go back to before Renny was doing this, back in the day when Renny was a construction worker. I was out west. I was working. I was living in Golden, BC, and myself and a couple of the guys we were working with, we went and got some NHL tickets, and it was great back in those days because we were all Manitoba guys who had lost the Winnipeg Jets. So anytime we had an opportunity to go see NHL hockey, we dove all over that. And so this was an opportunity that we went out and we went to go see the Calgary Flames. It was the closest market. We were playing we were seeing the Calgary Flames and, of course, the Vancouver Canucks at that time. If you remember, the Canucks were pretty good team, up and coming team. Ryan Kessler had just come up from the Moose and was playing in that game that we saw. And so the Canucks were a real good team. And if you remember in that era of time, the Calgary Flames, well, they weren't that good of a team, or were they? They'd missed the playoffs for a bunch of years. And this was kind of the year they started turning things around. And just, to give you the spoiler alert, it's the year they go to the Stanley Cup final. I learned a lesson watching that game. The Vancouver Canucks were great. They were a great team that year. Calgary knocked them off, I believe it was, in the first round. But watch that game. Great hockey game. A lot of great players playing. Todd Bertuzzi, Marcus Naslund, Jerome McGinley, Mika Kiprasov was great in that game. And I remembered walking away from that game, and the one thing that you knew, it was a real question mark whether or not the Calgary Flames were going to make the playoffs. You knew the Vancouver Canucks were going to. In the end, the Flames made it in the 6th seed and again made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final that year. It was a great hockey game. Great hockey game. And I remember I left that hockey game and I said to my brother-in-law who I'd gone with, and I said, I don't know about that Calgary Flames team, how far they could go, but I'll tell you this, if that team gets into the playoffs, they're going to be really, really hard to beat. And I think that says something, right? Like there's a lot of teams out there who can beat you. But I think you want to be a team that's really hard to beat. And that whole Calgary Flames story that I just forced a whole bunch of you folks through is all a way of me coming in and saying, I took a look at the Winnipeg Jets on this night, and I think it's been the Winnipeg Jets for a while. But the Winnipeg Jets are a team that are really, really hard to beat, and that's a good thing. Now, I say that because, yes, the Jets start out this game. Scott Arniel had said yesterday, I believe it was, he thought whoever got to their game first was going to end up winning the game here tonight. I don't necessarily think that that's the way things rolled out. I mean, that's what ended up happening, but the Winnipeg Jets were the best team in the first period. It wasn't even close. I thought even with the Winnipeg Jets winning the game and coming ahead out in the third period, I thought for the most part the LA Kings carried the play. The LA Kings were a great team in that game. I thought if you take the entirety of the game, I thought the LA Kings were the better team on this night. Why is that important? I know there's a lot of people at home who are going to be angry that I said that I didn't say it's the Winnipeg Jets. I think it's important because we talked about it so many times on this podcast last year that there were rarely nights when the Winnipeg Jets weren't the better team. They earned everything they got last year on the way to that President's Trophy. There were very few nights that they weren't the better team on the ice. And there was, some of the games that they lost last year, a decent chunk of them, they were the better team who just happened to lose. Very few of them were they the team that was was not the better team and still managed to win because they were just basically the better team on the vast majority of nights last year. I didn't think they were the better team tonight, and yet they win. And they win, in my opinion, in a really honest fashion. But that distinction that I'm giving them of being a team that is really hard to beat, there's certain things that do that. One of them is Connor Hellebuyck. I thought it was a great night by Connor Hellebuyck. Ken, I already know what he's going to say was his hashtag the keg save of the game. By the way, make sure you're getting me your hashtag the keg saves of the game if you want in on those $50 gift certificates that we give away once every show. But I thought he was brilliant throughout the night. I thought the Jets were really, really hard on giving away the middle of the ice. Scott Arniel talked about it a lot in the playoffs last year when the Jets weren't doing well. They were giving up the guts of the ice, as he liked to say it. I just don't think that the Jets allowed the LA Kings, for the most part, into the guts of the ice on this night. Blocked shots, we'll get into all of those, but the Jets and the way that they shut down shooting lanes on this night was absolutely something. Great special teams. Go out, start the game with a power play goal. Your penalty kill is absolutely spot on. Yes, the Winnipeg Jets led in one goal at the tail end of a 5-on-3 last game, but their penalty kill to start this year has been ferocious. But I think the thing on top of that is their system is hard to play against. But on a night like tonight, where you need to, someone to step up and do it. Last game, it was Kyle Connor, and he got them close. Tonight, it's Mark Scheifele. It's their goaltender. It's a great heads-up play by Josh Morrissey to get the puck to the net on the game-winning goal. It's the star power. Like, the Winnipeg Jets have, in my estimation, 4 superstars on this team that are the kind of players that can turn a game. Right. And so in a game and when I say I think the LA Kings were the better team tonight, I'm not saying by a long shot, but I think that they were the better team tonight. But you've got a guy like Connor Hellebuyck, who we know can steal you games for the Winnipeg Jets. You got a guy like Josh Morrissey, who can control the pace of games and puts the Jets into position to win games. And then you've got guys like Kyle Connor, who went out last game and had that hat trick and started off tonight by setting up the first goal of the game. And then you've got Mark Scheifele, who I will dig in deeper into this after we bring Ken into this, because it's got to be a topic we get into. But I just thought Mark Scheifele had a relentless nature to him tonight. That was a continuation of his play in game 1, where he just simply was not going to be denied. Mark Scheifele, and I don't just say that because he scores the tying goal and the game-winning goal. I saw a player who was intent on going out and winning that game for his team, and that's exactly what Mark Scheifele did. You are a hard-to-beat team if you have 1, definitely 2, but 3, 4 players who are the kind of players who can steal games for you, and you add to that a structured hockey team that, to be honest with you, I don't think their structure is locked in and in place yet, but a team that protects the guts of the ice, a team that never gives up, a team that shuts down shooting lanes. The Winnipeg Jets, folks, are hard to beat. And it's a continuation of last year, but I just think that last year, the Jets started the year, we know how they started, went on that huge run. Everything was locked in place. And they were so good. And I always said it, their strength, their superpower was the system. I think they've gone through these first 2 games really without that system being fully in check. And to be honest with you, I think right now they're a little bit of a one-line team. But that's enough to beat a team as good as the LA Kings, who are a great team. Everybody, your Winnipeg Jets, they are a team that is extremely, extremely hard to beat. And that, to me, for once again, being, in the position where we're simply looking forward to the playoffs, right? And seeing what this team can do there. Being a team that is hard to beat is a team that's hard to eliminate in the playoffs. And the Winnipeg Jets, I think, are actually even early building on that DNA. And I think tonight was an example of that. That is the Jim Pattison Toyota on Region opening drive. And hey, folks, this month, the Toyota Get In and Go event is on now at Jim Pattison Toyota on Region. Finance the 2025 Tacoma truck for $589 with up to 1% loyalty rate reduction and a $1,500 accessory credit. But hurry, the offer ends October 31st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. Okay, folks, that's enough out of me for this moment. Time to let someone else step up to the buffet, a guy who eats like nobody, folks. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, great to see you, my man. See you that you're still at the rink on this Thanksgiving weekend as we work to get off to go take care of the Thanksgiving stuff we need to. You're looking like $1 million. Of course, you told me you went recently to Vittorio Rossi. But Ken, as usual, I want to talk about myself, specifically this suit, because this too is a Vittorio Rossi suit. I gotta tell you this story. I'm walking in the hallways today, heading to the dressing room, and another member of the media, I complimented them on their jacket, and they responded to me and they said, "Yeah, the jacket," and they said, "But no matter what I wear, I can't quite look as sharp as you," they said to me, and without a pause, one of the security guards who you will know, Paolo, who is a big K&R fan, who's come to some live K&R events, without a pause says, "That's because you haven't gone to see Frankie and the boys." And it was just absolute perfection, I thought. So, hey, folks, if you just can't seem to get that sharp look that you're seeing on my guy Kenny and your guy Renny, you know what to do. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and you will walk out as sharp as you can possibly be. Ken, take it away. What'd you see in that game here tonight?
Yeah, it was a tale of almost, I'm going to say 3 games. A tale of 2 games wouldn't be giving it enough credit, I think. We knew the Jets wanted to be better out of the gate, and they obviously were. Exceptional first period, at least 3 quarters of it, Sean. I mean, the shots were 14-2, I think, at one point. Yes, aided somewhat by 3 consecutive power plays, but the Jets earned those power plays with their hustle. They were very crisp out of the gate, moving the puck well, moving their feet, finishing checks, all of the things that they need to do in order to have success. And for me, that was a necessity. I mean, we talked about it, personally after the game. We talked about it yesterday. I love the way that Dylan DeMello kind of encapsulated the entire mood. Yes, the Jets were happy with their 3-goal outburst to make it a 5-4 game where that they could have won. But they also weren't ignoring the fact that they weren't good enough for almost 50 minutes of that game. So that's growth. That's the growth we've been seeing from this group in terms of the leadership group and the standard. They weren't at the gold standard. And Sean, you nailed it. The Jets were not at the gold standard today either. The chances that they're giving up are very high. Jets gave up 20 high dangers today, Sean, according to the folks at Natural Stat Trick. And Sean, we saw it. Even though the shots were 14-3, 3 of the best scoring chances in the first period belonged to the Kings. A couple of point blankers, a couple of redirects and tips, and Hellebuck had to kick out the left pad. There are things that we're seeing that are a little bit still abnormal for this group, yet they are improving in certain areas. And Sean, you nailed it out of the gate during the opening drive. The Jets top line, feasting today on the competition. Again, Mark Scheifele, exceptional performance with 2 goals. Kyle Connor, another helper, and Gabe Vilardi. I thought he was omnipresent, as Paul Edmonds likes to say. He was here, he was there, he was everywhere. 2 apples for Vilardi, Sean, 5 shots, 10 shot attempts. really moving the puck well in those early power plays. Again, Gabe Vilardi could have 6 goals already this year, is what I would say. And again, that's only a slight exaggeration, but he's getting tons of great looks. And if he continues to get those looks, it's going to be 35 plus for him again. And man, Scheifele's performance, I know he played it down in the post game that we just had in the room. Both Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele, this is masterclass, elite 1 percentile of finding the opening to get it past the shot blocker at the left point by Morrissey. And he absolutely knew that Mark Scheifele had one inside position with Cody Ceci, and he put the puck in a place where only Scheifele could tip it. It took a ridiculous, side of him backhand redirection. But Sean, that's a superstar going to the hard area. His tying goal, yes, of course it goes off Mikey Anderson, and there is an element of luck involved. That's a superstar driving the far post and putting his shoulder down and getting to the net. Mark Scheifele, absolute, stallion out of the gate for the Jets. 2 goals, 5 points. We talked about this almost all of last year. Jim Nill is part of the management team. He was in here for the opener. Today, I don't think there were any Team Canada folks watching, but they're paying attention to the fact that Mark Scheifele has come out of the gate. And it's not just the points that he's getting. 5 points in 2 games, impressive. Not just the points. Scott O'Neill mentioned the leadership with Lowry not being there. He's going to the hard areas. He's getting his team fired up by getting involved physically. And man, he's skating incredibly well, and he's so dangerous. And that top line, all 3 of the players have come out with exceptional starts. Josh Morrissey, we talked about this, Sean, the other day. You're talking about the superstars, and I'll get to Hellebuck in a minute. Morrissey, he wants the extra responsibility. I mean, today they had no choice with Hayden Fleury going down. It was 25-31 for Josh with just 5D in the third period there after that block shot off the kneecap. And I mean, we'll save Hellebuck after I step back here for a second, but man, just absolutely dialed in this game for Connor Hellebuck. And, that's a big reason why the Jets are 1-1. Again, tons of exceptional efforts and, sacrifice from the foot soldier players in this one, especially late, but superstars driving the bus absolutely in this one.
Well, I just want to dig in a little bit deeper on Scheifele, and I want to talk about what I saw here tonight. Last game, if you noticed, the Winnipeg Jets, as they lose that game 5-4, there were 2 instances I saw, Ken, where Mark Scheifele was in the right spot at the right time for a deflection, or the goalie kicked it out, and he goes to put it in the net, bounces over his stick. He'd missed on a couple. Could have been the kind of game that if you are not this seasoned, calm veteran that Mark Scheifele has become, and leader, like Scott O'Neill talked about his leadership and, about how he's picked it up, which is a really interesting thing to hear, Ken. In Lowry's absence, he feels that Mark Scheifele has taken it up a level when it comes to his leadership. I mean, when you're getting a guy who had 3 assists in his first game, Ken?
Yeah. 3
assists in his first game, 2 goals here tonight, both of them kind of the variety of, holy smokes, how did he do that? Basically the kind of goals where a guy wills things to happen. When you've got the guy who gets it done on the score sheet, but is getting it done on the leadership front of things, and everyone knows my thoughts, I think the Jets, not quite successful comeback last game was cued by Mark Scheifele getting feisty, getting into it, showing that emotion. But what I saw tonight, when I saw a player who came off that last game, where I could have thought, I don't care how old or how young you are, you can get frustrated when the puck's not going. And now it was an extended period of time. I'm not going to build this up into something it's not and be like, Mark Scheifele's gone ice cold, or his hands are cold, or he can't seem to buy one kind of thing. Like if you remember Nino Niederreiter, what was it, last year or 2 years ago, where he ran into that, where it looked like he was just going to get a whole bunch of goals.
Yep.
What I saw tonight was just this, and I felt like I saw it early. I said something to my camera guy, Colin, and I was like, Mark Scheifele is just not going to be denied on this night. And it was like, yes, you're the LA Kings. Yes, you're hard to score against. Yes, you're hard to get to the dirty areas. And yes, I'm in this situation. Hey, he had a one-timer tonight that was set up by Kyle Connor, and he missed the net, top corner on it. I was starting to think, okay, are we going to start this kind of snowballing into, okay, all of a sudden Mark Scheifele, he's got it on his stick and he just can't buy one. I just saw a guy who was just like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm going out tonight. I'm affecting this game. I'm stepping up. And he goes out and he gets that first goal, which is a little bit Barron-esque from what we saw last game. It comes off of great defense, great defensive zone pressure, being on the right side of the puck, but having to do so in a way that if you're going to be aggressive, your positioning better be perfect. Like there's so much that goes into that goal other than the idea that some people say, well, I threw it to the front of the net and redirected. He got a little bit lucky. Well, when you do everything right from your own zone all the way to the other end of the ice and you just grind it to the front of the net and it goes in, don't be coming to me and telling me that this is lucky when you've just done the right thing and have elite level positioning and compete and stick handling and all those abilities that he had. This was just Mark Scheifele saying, every bit of work that I put in during the regular season, during the off season, I'm just taking everything I have and I'm pushing. I'm not waiting for the game to come to me. I'm taking this game. That's how he ties it. That's how he gets in behind Cody Ceci, like you're talking about, and redirects it for the game winner. Mark Scheifele was making this happen. And Ken, maybe I'm reading too much into it. We've seen a lot of great hockey out of Mark Scheifele over the years. But I almost feel like, and I'll give this credit to you, Ken, because I've started to think Mark Scheifele is 32, turning 33. At what point do you start wondering when there's maybe a tail off in the player? I'll let all the folks know because Renny has no problem patting Renny on the back, but Kenny never pats himself on the back. I don't know if he can't stretch, so I got to do it for him. But Kenny, heading into this year, said to me, I think Mark Scheifele is going to have the best year of his career. 5 points in his first 2 games. And the performance that we saw tonight, that is spot on analysis so far by Ken. Hey, small sample size. I like where you're going with this, Kenny.
Yeah, and just quickly, and thank you for that. Alex K says here, Scheifele and Connor on PK are gold and should play PK more often, especially on the tail end of the PK. Yes. I love that. I love that Scott O'Neill has done that early on. I'm going to get into Scott O'Neill in a minute here because Sean, I know you love that
comment. We may
be I started. Yeah, I started. Yeah, I did start. Yeah. And again, I'll get to Arneal in a second because I thought there was some brilliant coaching happening there as well. But I can't remember if we got too much into this on the preview or not. But being fortunate enough to speak with Mark Scheifele in depth at the Team Canada orientation camp, for those folks who might have missed it, he was very emotional talking about the loss of his father. How challenging that was, how much he appreciated the love shown by, Dallas Stars players in the hockey world as a whole. But seeing Mark kind of hanging around those hallways that included Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Mitch Marner, all of the star quality on Team Canada, and Josh Morrissey, and knowing that he belonged with them, I just got the sense. I mean, we saw how motivated Mark is, always intrinsically motivated. We know that, but we know how much he wants to put on that Team Canada jersey in Italy. I think that he was always going to have a really great start to the year, but you've seen how he's shot out of a cannon here. And it's not just the points, as I mentioned. The points are impressive. Mark's got to show a two-way game in order to make that team. If he doesn't show that, he's not going to be on it. So I've liked how he's come out of the gate. And I just think that this is a guy that pushes himself so hard. And yes, we know that, Father Time may be undefeated, but it's not an automatic that Mark is suddenly going to decline because he's, he's still in his early 30s. But to me, he just works so hard at the game. And the fact that he and Josh Morrissey have spent so much time together in Calgary over the last 2 summers, and specifically this one, I think that those 2 players just benefit from being pushed by one another. We know Kyle Connor wants to have an incredible start. Gabe Vilardi, very, still solidified now, knowing that he's got that 6-year deal, knows where he's going to be, finding his way on that line, knowing what he's great at, knowing, what kind of impact he can have on one of the best lines in hockey. I just think that that trio is really going to have an exceptional year. Yes, they were on for a couple goals against the other night. That's going to happen. But overall, I just think that Mark is, he's so dialed in right now, works so incredibly hard, and he never gets satisfied with where he's at, even after, a career best season, in terms of points with the 87. I know I also said this to you, Sean. I think Mark could push for 100 points this year. I really do. And again, I mentioned 50 goals for Kyle Connor. I will not be surprised if Scheifele is in that, 92 to 100 point range, just because, he can shoot it, he can pass it. He's being leaned on right now, not just the leadership that Scott O'Neill talked about, Sean. Mark Scheifele's taken the matchups that usually belong to Adam Lowry. Those guys are going best on best. So yes, they gave up a couple the other night against the Rantanen line, but they did a pretty good job in their matchup today, whether that was against Byfield or Kopitar. Those guys were exceptional at both ends. And again, I'm going to step back briefly, but circle back to Scott O'Neill. No, I'm going to say it to you, and I'm going to let you run with it. Scott or Sean, I love the fact Scott O'Neill got Neil Pionk and Josh Morrissey out with the Jets top line against the Kings third pairing. And again, Jim Hiller's not worried about having Dumoulin and Cody Ceci out on the ice. These are experienced guys that have played top 4 minutes, but I thought that was another great example of very smart coaching. He loaded up on the back end, got the top line out against the third pairing, and then he got that Scheifele line out against the fourth line a couple shifts later. So for me, Scott O'Neill was really dialed in to his details in this game as well.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't think there's anything I can really add to that. I think, on a night like tonight, there just seemed to be a recognition that those guys were going. And I'd actually like to get into that as a theme a little later in the show because I did say it at the beginning. It feels like this show, this team is a little bit of a one-line team right now. I mean, when you got, 3 goals, 5 goals of how many are we at here? 7 goals, 5 of them come from Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor. I don't think I'm stepping out on a limb when I say that, but I do want to just take a look at something here and almost do like a new segment of like the alternate timeline segment of the show or something like that. But I love this comment that was made by Elias McCracken, who says, "Remember when we were preparing ourselves to see Scheifele move on? Phew, it is one of the evergreen takes that I had on this show when people were, and there was a lot of you. Some of you will even admit it to yourselves who were in our chat room, and we definitely know it was out in the public and a big topic of conversation with Jets fans. But there was a lot of people who wanted to see Mark Scheifele move on and leave town. And my evergreen take was, listen, this guy is highly capable. If he can get engaged, if he can get directed in the right direction, this is going to be a dangerous guy. And I think if you move Mark Scheifele on, it's something you're going to regret. Can we imagine this right now, folks? If the Winnipeg Jets would have traded Mark Scheifele a couple of years ago, when it looked like that's what was happening, if we're being frank, he was being shopped around the league. It never happened. But remember, a team like the Boston Bruins were interested. Could you imagine right now as a Winnipeg Jets fan, if Mark Scheifele was doing what he's doing right now and doing what he did last year and doing what he did the year before for another team? That stuff is soul shaking. That stuff is franchise altering and franchise shaking. Think about this. Like the Bambino was moved and it cursed the team, right? Like this is the effect that things have. It is literally like can kind of change the way you think about yourself when you allow something that is sitting there and you've got it in your hand and you send it someplace else. Like Mark Scheifele, if he was wearing a Boston Bruins jersey for the last couple of years and wearing one right now and doing exactly what he's doing, imagine where this franchise would be right now. It would not have won a President's Trophy. I would stake my reputation on that. And I think it would be a very different thing. I think you'd have a Winnipeg Jets team that was probably fighting to make the playoffs, not being the established team that they've become. And I just got to say, this is one of those moments I love the comment from Elias McCracken, because what he's basically brought up here is a lot of people, had they had their way, would be looking at life without Mark Scheifele. And I bet you almost every one of those people to a T who are thinking like that, like the life that they're living as a Jets fan with Mark Scheifele here at the moment. You know what? Give that comment, because it took us in an interesting direction. Give that the Flame and Comfort hot take of our show here. That, of course, is your hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth-related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. You will find when you get down there, it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. Don't take our word for it. Go down there, check it out yourself. Folks, you don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. Ken, I want to go in a little bit of a different direction here. Let's, okay, I was going to do the hot take for someone else. Maybe I'll give them a Pristine Roofing wake-up call for this. But I have this starred. Now, I get it. I understand some people, they get frustrated with certain players. There are certain players that are whipping boys. I would say this. If you're going to be here to beat down on a player, choose a game where that player has a bad game. Russell James Peters here says Logan Stanley with the puke emojis and the exclamation points. The Winnipeg Jets, to a degree, held on here tonight. And one of the reasons they held on was because a couple of their big guys, and the ones that stood out to me most were Logan Stanley and Schenn on this night, Ken, blocking shots, shutting things down, just not allowing things through, really sheltering Connor Hellebuyck in the process there. That, to me, is Pristine Roofing wake-up call territory to call out Logan Stanley on a game like this. Save it for a game where there's something to be upset about. He was integral in the Winnipeg Jets winning here tonight, and that's why Russell is getting the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. You know what that means? Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you can get down to your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Folks, give your house the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. Just like I'm sure Russell James Peters is happy that he got the wake-up call here tonight to kind of recalibrate him in this situation, Kenny.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, 3 block shots by Stanley in that last sequence there. So, yeah, I mean, those guys needed to be better. And Logan Stanley had some minutes on the second pairing with Neil Pionk again in the third period with Hayden Fleury going down in the game. So, again, perfect game? No, but involved. He had a huge hit on Alex Turcotte. And Sean, this was a great example where Logan didn't have to take 10 strides to go over and hit Alex Turcotte. He only took a couple, but he absolutely rocked him. And then Logan Stanley would have been happy to go with Jeff Malott, I would assume. But I love that Luke Schenn stepped in and said, no, that was a clean hit. If you want to do something, do it with me. And again, just an honorable mention. And it's too bad I don't think I've seen Beer League in here. He was up in arms with my take about Nikita Chibrikov, Sean. The reason why I wanted more was on display in the game. Chibrikov had the puck on his stick all over the place in the first period. That he didn't do very often at all in the opener. Again, still room for improvement for all three of those, second, third, and fourth lines. But Chibrikov, Sean, this is what I was talking about. In those 14 shifts for 925, he had 2 shot attempts. He had a hit. He had a takeaway. He was involved on the forecheck, made some smart passes, and I liked his game a ton better. And again, it is natural for a player in his first season opener to be a little bit nervous. I thought he was nervous in the opener. Today, I didn't see nerves from Chibrikov. I saw a guy who knows what he needs to do to be in the NHL and to try to hold down that job on the second line, knowing that one of his buddies, Brad Lambert, is also interested in that line if it doesn't go particularly well. So again, Scott O'Neill's talked about this. He needs a little bit more from the middle six specifically. I told you that I thought I really liked the move to Iafallo with Toews, and we saw him disrupting things on the forecheck and getting involved. So, I saw some steps forward from that line, in a really solid effort. I didn't particularly like the Nemestikov line. They need to play better. All three of those guys, Vlad Nemestikov, another big block late in the game. Nino Niederreiter, at least involved physically. He had 4 hits. That's good. But that line's got to get moving. a little bit more. And again, it just getting started with those guys with Nyquist. But the middle six, as you mentioned, the Jets need more secondary scoring in order to be an elite team. They can be a contending team, but you can't be a one-line hockey team no matter how good that line is. Power play gets a goal today. I know my mentions had lots of people wondering, oh, well, get Toews on the top unit instead of Iafallo. Well, I think that's something they will investigate at some point. But Iafallo, I think, had 5 power play goals last year, and there he goes. He gets in all alone and buries a shot on Darcy Kemper. So, good on him for getting the job done in that role. Power play looked way crisper, Sean, today. Could have had 2 or 3 goals. Mark Scheifele was right. They could have cashed a couple in early on. Second unit moved the puck well. They had chances also. So, those things are going. But yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. You can't, we saw this in the early years of the Brian Little, Blake Wheeler, Andrew Ladd era. Jets can't be a one-line hockey team. When Scheifele arrived, they started to have a little bit more, balance or spread out scoring, not necessarily balanced, but, and then Scheifele going up to the top line, then we know that that's been good for a long time. But in order to be an elite team, you got to have a little bit more from some of those other lines. There's no doubt about that.
Well, and I made it clear on that. I think they're a one-line team right now when it comes to being offensive. But this is the important part, and this is to kind of come back to Logan Stanley and the conversation of the defense as a whole. I think this, and I've got time. I've got time to see the fourth line figure this out, the third line and the second line, because what people are so used to in Winnipeg is the consistency and the constancy that we've seen from this team for so long, where, I mean, Mason Appleton was coming out alongside Niederreiter and Lowry for 2 straight years. They didn't have anything to figure out by the time they hit the ice. Nor has that top line ever since, they kind of shot out of the gate with Velarde last year. They started, they don't have anything to figure out. And even the second line last year, when the Jets struck out at trying to get a second line center, having Vladislav Nemestikov there, that line had been intact for the vast majority of the year before that. So there wasn't a lot to figure out. The second, third, and fourth lines right now are trying to figure things out. And I've said this before, you've heard it, the Jets system is their superpower. That superpower doesn't come easily. If it did, every other team in the league would defend like the Winnipeg Jets do. It's hard to do. Gus Nyquist talked about it. And if you go and you talk to a lot of the new guys who come into the Jets system, they'll talk about how demanding that system is to play. When you're only adding 1 or 2 guys in, it's not so bad because everyone else around you is playing the system. You just focus on doing your thing. Everything works so fine. But Koepke's trying to learn the system. Pearson's trying to learn the system. Jonathan Toews, Nyquist, go on and on and on. All these players are trying to learn the system as they try to learn with new players around them. So I think there's a reasoning behind what's happening here, what we're seeing, which should bring us back to the idea that we want to give all the credit and should to Mark Scheifele on a night like tonight where he goes out and does what he does to allow the Winnipeg Jets to win this game. But the difference between the Winnipeg Jets winning this game tonight and losing the game the other night is quite simply they allowed only 2 goals. And while Connor Hellebuyck was brilliant in this game tonight, the Winnipeg Jets didn't give up the middle of the ice. And what I saw was last game where there were wide open kind of holes in the system. What I saw was the defensive unit for the Winnipeg Jets really were dialed in. They really were protecting kind of the sides of the net and allowing, the Jets forwards to kind of close off that upper area, shut down those shooting lanes, make sure that the guts of the ice were covered off. But on a night like tonight, when Logan Stanley's able to play like he is, and Josh Morrissey played like he had, and Pionk and everyone, I'm adding everyone in here, but like there's no holes there. You don't have a third pairing that is failing you out there. You've got Logan Stanley having a really great game, trusted in really big moments of the game. Same thing with Schenn. And so while you are trying to figure things out with your second, third, and fourth line, which is going to take time, and I'm going to tell you this right now, they're going to get better and better and better. And then when Lowry comes back, You're going to get a really big boost in all of this because Lowry is the culture carrier. He's the guy who is the blueprint enforcer and the guy who displays it. Guys, we're not playing to the blueprint right now. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do that. But the Jets win this game tonight by a Herculean effort by one of their best players in Mark Scheifele. But they also win it because the defense covered off their side of the system so solidly that they get away with just allowing 2 goals on that game. And that's how you end up coming out ahead of that game and not coming out ahead the other night when there's 5 goals put up on the board. So those guys deserve their credit. I know we started here. We don't want to go too deep on those guys. But hey, we've seen it tons of time on the show. You've heard me talk about it. You've heard me talk about the times that you needed to see more from Logan Stanley. Logan Stanley was not a problem for the Winnipeg Jets on this night and should not be talked about as a problem on this night.
Fleury was a little bit better too, but again, if based on what I saw, Sean, it's hard, again, who knows how he sleeps and how it feels, but I got a hard time believing Hayden Fleury is going to wake up feeling great after taking that shot off the kneecap from Adrian Kempe. I mean, if that's the case, I mean, the Jets are going to have to consider calling up a defenseman from the Moose, don't you think, for this road trip? Yes, you can plug Colin Miller in, but they're also fortunate there's a 2-day break. But knowing that knowing that Lambert and Ford can both go down without clearing waivers, I won't be surprised if the Jets call up a defenseman. Whether Fleury needs to go on short-term IR or not, I won't be surprised if they take an extra defenseman on this road trip here.
Yeah. I'm just going to go back to something I was thinking about before I never got to talk about it, but that scrap of Schen's, going after Malata, who we know is a super, super tough character. Just think that kind of sets the tone, you know what I mean, for the Jets on a night like tonight. And kind of saw a little bit of it later, that late penalty taken by Neil Pionk. He was a little bit too
aggressive
with that penalty. That said, Ken, I don't mind it. Game 2 of the season, you took a couple whacks at our goaltender in a close game. That doesn't happen. That to me is money in the bank for down the road, where you're saying like there will be a punishment involved with coming near our goaltender. Did it put them in a situation where they had to make a really good kill and make things a little bit dicier tonight? For sure it did. I'll be honest with you, I'm okay with it. And I just think that kind of ability, that feeling for the Winnipeg Jets that there's a time to go to the box, I like the way they rode that line tonight, even if it put them in some situations tonight. But here, talking about going into the box, you can get out of the penalty box with Cambrian's unfee. You've heard us talk about how we love being Cambrian Credit Union members, and one of the reasons is because we save big on fees with Cambrian's unfee. To get out of the penalty box and score free banking at Cambrian, all you need is a monthly direct deposit. So you set up your pay to be automatically deposited to your Cambrian account, and that's it. You get your monthly service fees back. How's that for a great save? Go to cambrian.mb.ca to sign up for your account. Ken, while we're at it, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Ken, I wanted your thoughts on Jonathan Toews tonight.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I thought that there were another bunch of moments where he's starting to look more and more like himself. He does a very good job. I know some folks in the chat room are not agreeing and saying he's not doing anything. I see lots of smart plays. He puts the puck in the right area almost all the time. Would he like to be a little bit more dangerous offensively? Sure. But he's also getting used to, new line mates, new system, all of those things. I think his skating is getting, better and better. I think he's, adapting to the pace. I think he's done a nice job of, being responsible defensively. We talked the other day about him being disappointed about being under 50% in the circle at 47. Today, 11 wins, 7 losses for 61%. I thought he did a great job in the circle. I think there was going to be some more temptation for Scott Arniel to throw him out there late in games on the penalty kills, things of that nature. Ice time down slightly from the other day. He was over 18 minutes the other day. Today, 20 shifts for 15:04, on for 1 goal against. But yeah, I mean, I'm seeing what I expect to see. I'm seeing a guy coming back after 2.5 years. He holds himself to an incredibly high standard. I'm sure he's going to want to do more and will do more as the games get, more, as the games move along. But for me, I think Jonathan Toews hit my expectations for the 2 games. I'm seeing positive strides being taken forward. I don't think he's in any danger of, not being an offensive contributor. There's no reason to worry. Oh my God, he doesn't have a point in 2 games. Nothing like that for me. I mean, again, not all over the place. You notice him every shift, but I noticed a lot of subtle things in his game that I think are part of him taking steps forward.
There was a couple times tonight that I thought he got caught looking really tired on the ice, like not just tired, but really tired. And what it made me think is people don't understand the level you have to raise yourself to be an NHL hockey player, to have the hands in those spots, to have the wind where you need it to be, right? Like the days, this is like Superman type stuff. Like the average person is never going to understand what it would take to get to operating at the level that an NHL player needs to operate. They would have had somewhat of an idea of that maybe back in the 80s and the 90s when players used to use training camp to get back into shape, and they'd be right beside all the boys they knew back in the day in their hometown, drinking and smoking all summer and things like that. Like Josh Morrissey touched on it in his answer of just what he sees training every day in the off season with Mark Scheifele, right? Like those two now have become kindred spirits that are just keeping themselves at such a ridiculous high level, and they do it over the summer, and then they bring it in, they find another way to take it. Like players, Mark Scheifele, where he is right now, early in the season, is probably where guys in the 90s were deep into the playoffs. You know what I mean? Just that level of fitness, that level of, like sharpness, everything that you do. And I think it's like you can't discount how hard it is to climb the ladder to get that high. And I think what I feel like I'm seeing right now with Jonathan Toews is that when you take 2 years off and when your health kind of gives away on you to the point that you're just looking to try and figure things out rather than focusing on staying fit and working out and doing all those kind of things. What's becoming evident to me with him, and I thought tonight a couple times there was one, and yeah, his line got caught out on a shift where they got pinned in, but like he was sucking wind in a way I've never seen from Jonathan Toews before. And to me, what I'm seeing is a guy that's just like, he's still got to climb higher on the ladder. And he's been climbing and he's been climbing and he's been doing it since last spring or maybe even earlier than that and over the summer. You just need to understand that the height that you need to climb on that ladder to be an NHL player is so astronomical. It's asking a lot from a player who's been out of the game for 2 years to get there and be there at this point. So it's going to take some time. And this is something I think that we've seen and heard from both his head coach and his general manager, in that they think the true measure of Jonathan Toews is not going to be until deep into the season and heading towards the playoffs. This, to me, I'm starting to see examples of what this looks like for them and what they were expecting to see. Ken, I'm going to do this. It was called for at some point.
Sure.
Start, but we need to do this. I'm wearing accessories. I'm wearing old man glasses. I'd rather wear a young, cool man's headband. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. Here we go. Of course, we know, Ken, that's the moment that Glenn and Jonah from Myers are always waiting for. I kind of think I see why they like the headband so much, Ken, because I'll tell you, people, you'll have noticed this forehead, it's a big area to cover. It's a big, big area to get around. And the one thing we know about the folks is at Myers, whether it's your pharmacy needs, health food needs, supplements and things like that, they've got you covered, and they'll deliver anywhere around the city. So like this tight piece of fabric spans this giant forehead, so too does Myers span the entire city of Winnipeg. You need your stuff, you can get it from them, and they'll bring it right to your doorstep. So get a hold and say hi to Jonah and Glenn when you head down there, if you could, folks. Ken, a little bit of a free space on the board. Anything you want to hit up before we get to the Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game?
Yeah, and not a ton. I mean, just quickly on the penalty kill, I think we should just dive in a little bit here
yes,
before we get into the awards. And, it could be part of it. And on any other day, that penalty kill probably is going to be that. But I had some other thoughts, and maybe you don't. But again, we knew that coming into this year, what we knew is that the Jets went from a bottom third power play to tops in the NHL. They went from a bottom third penalty kill to, I think, 13th in the NHL. So middle of the pack, but like knocking on the door for top 10 behavior. And again, today, yes, the Kings whipped it around pretty well at various times, but the Jets did an exceptional job on the penalty kill here in this one, finishing 5 for 5. Yes, one was late and wasn't a full, it was only 17 seconds, but the ability to gain momentum from penalty kills. And as you mentioned, Sean, the only one they've given up was essentially a 5-on-3. Yes, the player was out of the box, but he wasn't in the play. To me, that's a 5-on-3 goal, essentially. So, yeah, they're doing a good job. There are, more chances probably being given up than they would like, but a lot of those chances are coming from the outside. And when they haven't been from the outside, Connor Hellebuyck has been just absolutely exceptional. We know there's a little bit of a change in personnel. We talked a little bit earlier. I like the power hour portion of going Scheifele, Kyle Connor in those stretches. Again, when Adam Lowry is not available, I like what I've seen from Cole Koepke at times on the penalty kill. That's part of the reason he was brought in. Tanner Pearson, unfortunate for him today, gets out there for the long shift. He's gassed, has a chance at the, empty netter, fans on it, and then takes a tripping call. But again, these guys are adapting well. Morgan Barron doing a very good job on the penalty kill as well. I think it's an area where he can excel, and then it'll give him confidence on the offensive side of the game. Obviously, we saw a shorthanded goal the other day, but to me, Barron is going to continue to gain confidence from the work he's doing on the penalty kill. Nemestikov is battling on the penalty kill as well and doing a good job at it. So, yeah, I just think that it deserves again, small sample size. I get it, but there have been years in the past, Sean, where penalty kill hasn't been sharp in the early going, and it's kind of gotten them into a big hole that's made it tough to improve their efficiency levels to get them challenging to be a top 10 team in that area. Obviously, they've made a few tweaks to the system, personnel changes, but stick taps for the penalty kill for its early improvements as well as what I see.
Well, here I want to talk about something and use the Jets' success on the power play to accentuate what made them successful on the penalty kill. What the Jets do so well on their power play and had such a strong power play last year is they move the puck and they try and lure a guy out of position, right? Like give him that opportunity to think that he can pounce, turn over that puck and send it down. Once they lure that guy over, they move it to the next guy, to the hole that's created. And then they just keep moving it and moving it and moving it and allowing those guys to like slip in to try and fill the void left behind by the last guy who got out of. It's just like dominoes falling, right? And the Jets are so good at doing it. And you can see in that first power play goal, that's exactly how they did it. Move it here. Guy commits to the first guy commits to the second guy commits to the third guy, and all of a sudden you're running out of guys to commit to the next guy, and all of a sudden you get the puck, and now it's an odd man situation. Now Alex Iafallo has the puck. There's one D-man there, and Mark Scheifele is just off in the wings. It's a 2-on-1. The defenseman makes the right play. He's making sure that the pass can't get across easily to Mark Scheifele. Iafallo's all alone. Boom, it's in the back of the net. That's what makes the Jets power play so good, is just drawing guys out. conversely, that's what's made the Winnipeg Jets penalty kill so good. And I know my hockey chat group, someone was talking in there, and they were talking about how passive the Jets power play was. Well, we've seen in the past the Jets at times, and for the vast majority of the years, like to have a very, very aggressive power play, but it's aggressive at the right times. It's aggressive when you can contest the puck. But when you couldn't, what the Winnipeg Jets did not allow tonight is they did not allow themselves to be pulled out of position to chase and start that domino race that the Jets were so good at. That I'm telling you right now, LA looked good moving the puck tonight. They would have taken advantage of those moments. The Jets just did not give up on their jobs, on their responsibilities, and they did not give up on the areas of the ice that they were each tasked to defend. Because of that, there was not open shots. When shots did happen on the net, quite often, it just turned into the Jets scooping up the puck and sending it down the ice. Unbelievable job on their penalty kill so far. I mean, outside of getting scored on with, just right after that 5-on-3 turned into a 5-on-4 last game, this has been a ridiculously suffocating penalty kill for the Winnipeg Jets. All right, Ken, let's move on to the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, it came pretty early, and it was tough to tell who. Both guys had to prevent the goal from happening. Both Neil Pionk and Jonathan Toews. It was that wild sequence where Hellebuck makes an incredible save off of Adrian Kempe, who was an absolute force in this game, and I think it was Armia that was coming for the rebound, and he was denied by both Toews and Neil Pionk. So I'm going with that play early.
I think I'm just going to hand it to Mark Scheifele, just on him having the Winnipeg Jets covered on this night and stepping in and saying, look, like I'd said, I saw a player that just quite simply was not going to allow himself not to get on the board here tonight. And it translates into the Jets not giving up 2 points on this night and earning 2 points on this night. So for me, that's what I see. That's what I've got. Mark Scheifele for me is my Johnston Group Got You Covered player of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, your keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, there were tons of chances, and just quickly on Kempe. I mean, Sean, we've talked ad nauseum here about the Kyle Connor contract. I mean, you got to get that deal signed if you're LA. You got to get Adrian Kempe signed to a long-term extension. Yes, the market is shifting, and it's going to cost more than maybe you thought before. But this guy's an all-timer for me for the Kings. He's the most dangerous player on the ice on the Kings roster. I thought he was exceptional. He was. In just an incredible game here. He had 5 shots. He had 11 shot attempts and 4 hits. Thought he was all over the map in the game. They got to get him signed quickly here. But keg save of the game for me is a subtle one. I was tempted earlier. I know I mentioned the Kevin Fiala 1T on the power play. I thought it was really good. I thought that's another great example, Sean, of Hellebuck making a really hard save look routine. And I think you kind of agreed that it maybe looked a little bit that way. But to me, I thought that Hellebuck, one of his best saves is the backhand chance that Yoel Armia had from the slot, because he was kind of going against his body. It was a cross-grain backhand, but Hellebuck's ability to make himself big and get a shoulder on it or a chest or whatever it is, I thought that's the one I'm going to go with the, like I said, honorable mention on the Fiala chance. And like I said, there were, multiple saves on Kempe that were exceptional too.
Well, now I feel strange saying it because you just talked about one save and said, but this one was even better. Now I feel like I didn't do my homework because I'm going with the original one, the one-timer off on the power play. I agree with you. It's almost maybe a bit of a subtle save that people wouldn't notice because it almost looks like nothing because he makes it look so routine. But for me, not only is it a great save because it's Connor Hellebuck sliding across. He's not getting surprised. He's reading the play ahead of time. He's big in his body, but his positioning isn't just like a lot of people are thinking, okay, he got his body in front of it. His positioning isn't just so good that he makes the save when the player is trying to catch him overcorrecting and get it on the inside of the far post. But he angles his pad in a way, Ken, that the save fires the puck out of danger. I mean, this is a guy taking care of everything. This is a guy doing his homework and then getting the extra credit of 10, 25% on top of that. Like, he's like, never mind that I'll stop the puck, but I'm going to make sure that no one around here needs to worry about what happens after this. And I'm doing it in a way that by the time everyone realizes I've made the save, the puck's already behind their backs. It's towards the boards, and it's in an area where there's no danger. And because of that, there's no confusion for the guys in front of the net. They don't need to worry about looking, where's the puck? What's happening? Do I have my man? Do I need to bury this guy? They've got time to turn around, clock where the puck is, settle back into their positioning, and be ready for the next assault that's coming on. I just thought that was like of the many subtle saves that Connor Hellebuyck has that we praise. That was one of those ones that, like, in early season form, we're talking about, I don't know that he necessarily needed a bounce back. But after allowing 5 goals last game, I see Connor Hellebuyck on this night making saves like that. And I think to myself, okay, that's a guy who just very quietly elevated his game, and like, yep, 2-time reigning Vezina champ, reigning Hart Trophy winner. I'm going to show people why, and I'll just do it in these everyday plays like this. That's my hashtag, the Keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what I think, though, and it doesn't matter especially what Ken thinks. It matters what you think. At home, folks, tell us what your hashtag, the Keg save of the game is, and you'll automatically be entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, and our first winner of the year, that would be Doug Henderson. Doug, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. We know it's Doug Henderson. Send me your email, and I will send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. Ken, anything you need to say before you head out the door?
Nope. Fun afternoon at the rink. Moose had a good start to their season. We've talked all, for the last few weeks about how much better they'd be. They beat the Laval Rocket 4-1. Braden Yager, first AHL point as a professional. Dom DiVincentis, 36 saves. Elias Solomonson had another assist. Colby Barlow set up the goal by Yager. So they got off to a good start, and they'll play Laval again on Sunday afternoon, apparently, here. So before I get on the plane to New York, if the storm doesn't prevent me from getting there.
No doubt. Talking with some people from the Moose, very excited they are about this year. They're expecting a major raise in level of play from their AHL team. And to Ken's point, some of the stuff that he just it's one of these years now where not only are you seeing an elevated level of hockey from the team itself, but there's a lot of prospects to have a look at right now. It's a fun time to go check out the Moose, because it's that, you'll always see those AHL advertisements are like, come watch the future, or the future is now, all those kind of things. There's a lot of players now from the Winnipeg Jets who you are going to be seeing in the future wearing Winnipeg Jets jerseys. And it's I kind of love that, seeing them in action and just imagining what that's going to look like at the NHL level, how it's all going to fit in. I know a lot of people got a real good look at Cole Perfetti at the AHL level. And I know that from what people saw, that was a real sneak peek of what you get from Cole Perfetti now. I know a lot of people enjoyed that. It's that time for the Manitoba Moose, I think. So Manitoba Moose tickets this year feel a little valuable, I would say. So make sure that if you're looking to get out and see some good hockey, that's a really great option for the folks out there. Ken, great job tonight. I'm hoping you have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy time.
Thanks, buddy. You as well.
That's what you're doing. Had a great time with you last night as we got together. And thank you all for taking the time out on a Thanksgiving weekend to come and spend some time with us. It means a ton to us, even if Renny ribs you here and there. He ribs because he loves. That's what he does. I would say this: if you enjoy your time here and if you enjoy spending time with us, here on Kenny and Renny. We would hope that you give yourself an opportunity to enjoy our sponsors and everything they're able to provide. We have a ton of belief in them. We think you should too. And we're very confident that if we send you down to talk with them for all your needs, that you will agree with us on that. Those folks who do such a good job for us. That would be Jim Pattison Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Flame and Comfort, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnston Group, of course, the Keg and Myers Pharmacy. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll see you after the next game. Bye-bye.